And welcome to Ask the Experts here on News Talk 1290 CJBK on this is Saturday. And with us on the program right now on Ask the Experts, a very special guest. I've been looking forward to speaking with Lynn Mader for some time now. She is the Manager of Provincial Operations in Ontario for Ducks Unlimited Canada. You can visit their website, ducks.ca. And we welcome Lynette to the program. How are you today?
I'm fine, Ryan. Thanks for having me on today.
It's my pleasure. And maybe we'll just start ground level stuff for people out there listening on this Saturday. Certainly everybody, I think, has heard of Ducks Unlimited. But when you're out and about, Lynette, and somebody asks you, "Hey, Lynette, what do you do for a living?" And you say that you are the Manager of Provincial Operations in Ontario for Ducks Unlimited Canada, or you maybe just say you work for Ducks Unlimited Canada. What is it when they say, "What is Ducks Unlimited?" I've heard of them, but I don't know exactly what you guys do. What's the answer that you give to people, Lynette?
Thanks. Well, the answer is Ducks Unlimited Canada is a wetland conservation organization. We're a nonprofit organization, and the important thing to know about us is that we physically restore wetland habitat. So we get out there on the landscape, and we talk to landowners, private and public landowners, and we work with them to restore wetland features on the Ontario landscape.
And so when you say restore, what kind of restoration are we talking about? Because that maybe could entail a whole bunch of things. When we say restore, when it comes to wetlands, can you give us the thumbnail sketch of that, Lynette?
Sure. When I say we physically restore wetlands, it means we're out there on the landscape with shovels, so to speak, helping to either enhance existing wetlands, helping them to function more effectively on the landscape, or we wouldn't say create new, because we would go into an area where a wetland probably historically existed and do the soil tests and look at the hydrology and determine that, yes, a wetland project could go here. And then what that means is that we might do a shallow excavation, or we might sort of do a survey to understand how that water comes down across that property, and just build a low-level berm that captures and stops the water as it's coming down through the property and holds it back and create. And then from there, all we do is we let Mother Nature take care of herself, and that wetland will revegetate with things that we know are common to wetlands, like bulrushes and wildlife. And as the water comes down across the property, it gets captured in that wetland, whether it's an excavation or what we call an impoundment, a low-level berm, and it gets captured there. And so it's just surface water. We're not pumping water in or doing anything like that. Mother Nature takes care of her own. It captures some surface water, and wildlife find it almost immediately. So, within the first few months, wildlife will find it, and within a year, that wetland will be beautiful and green, and there will be bulrushes growing up, and it'll be functioning quite well.
That is amazing. And what are some of the consequences, if we can call it that, Lynette, if you don't tend and, rehabilitate some of the lands that you have had the opportunity to, transform over the years? What are some of the things that would happen otherwise?
Thank you. That's a really astute question. What happens? So I just described how the wetlands sort of capture surface water as it comes down across the property. Well, what happens is when we remove wetlands, or in landscapes that don't have a lot of wetland habitat, there's not a lot to, and if there's no grasslands and not a lot of trees, there's nothing to capture that wetland as it's that water, as it's coming down through that watershed and across people's properties. There's nothing to slow it down or capture it, and it keeps on traveling. It gains momentum, and then we have flooding situations. The other thing that wetlands do, or what happens, is when there's not a lot of wetlands, we have issues with phosphorus in our waterways. One of the important functions that wetlands provide is to capture nutrients. So as water travels down through a watershed and across people's properties, it's picking up pollutants and nutrients, or what we call nutrients, which are really pollutants like phosphorus, as it goes, and carrying it into our lakes and delivering it to our lakes and rivers and streams, which we don't want. So wetlands really help to trap phosphorus as surface water travels across the landscape.
And maybe before we go on any further, and Lynette Mader is with us. She is the Manager of Provincial Operations in Ontario for Ducks Unlimited Canada. Visit their website, ducks.ca. Great informative website too, by the way, Lynette. I'm sure you have a hand in a lot of the information and material that is on there, and others also. But yeah, great information for people. And also, I direct people to the website right now, and I'm going to bring it up. Because what I like also is the buying a membership for a gift, and I'm not, where is that? Anyways, go to the website, you'll figure it out. It is easy to find, but I think that's such an amazing idea to buy a membership for somebody else. I mean, that is just a great thing to do, especially a young person out there.
Sure, thanks for that. It really helps cultivate a conservation and a stewardship ethic at a young age if we can do that sort of thing.
Absolutely. What I was going to ask was, you talk about, the lands that you're working with and working on and, rehabilitating in many situations. How do you acquire these lands, or who are you working in partnership with? How does that all come together?
The key to our success is largely the private landowner. So in southwestern Ontario, we work largely with the farming community, and farmers really understand some of the issues around phosphorus and the need to keep phosphorus out of our waterways. And what we're doing with them in southwestern Ontario is really they're contacting us to say, hey, I've got this marginal piece of land, I'm not farming it. I think it might be, I'm wondering if it's a good opportunity for a wetland project. And either us or one of our conservation partners, so we'll work with local stewardship organizations like Stewardship Oxford or Elgin Stewardship or the local conservation authority. Either one of one of our staff or one of theirs will go out and have a look at the property, walk it with the landowner, and say, yeah, we think it's a good opportunity for a wetland as well. And then we'll do the soil test and the hydrological surveys and determine where is the best spot. And as I mentioned, it's often like a low-lying area that the farmer has been struggling with, can't cultivate it properly, low yield, or has given up and is not farming it anymore anyways. And that often makes a great spot for wetland restoration. And ideally, if it's adjacent to a municipal drain, then it's capturing any runoff from the field or surface water as it's coming down across that farmer's property. It's capturing it and kind of filtering it before it gets into the municipal drain, which is ideal.
Amazing. Is there a minimum or a maximum land size, Lynette?
Not really. These things can be small, so they don't take up a big footprint on the farmer's property. No one wants to give up prime farmland, and that's certainly not what we're advocating. These are really marginal corners. So usually in southwestern Ontario, we call it the small wetland program because these might be a half acre or an acre at the most. Sometimes, if you've got the right landowner and the right property, they can get up to 3 acres, but in southwestern Ontario, they tend to be smaller.
Lynette Mader is with us here on Ask the Experts on News Talk 1290. CJBK, Manager of Provincial Operations in Ontario for Ducks Unlimited Canada, ducks.ca, the website address. Should have maybe asked you this off the top of the program, Lynette, but what drew you, and you do have a background growing up on a farm and all that sort of stuff, so, but what did draw you? Was there anything in particular that drew you to your profession these days with Ducks Unlimited? Was there something that you just thought, what that looks like and sounds like a great organization that you just wanted to be a part of it?
Thanks, Ryan. I think you're correct. I grew up in Middlesex County. I'm a proud farmer's daughter, raised by a turkey farmer / cash crop grower. And, one of the things that I appreciated most about my childhood was, the opportunity just to get outside and explore. And we were lucky. We lived on the edge of a creek, and we had an acreage with fields and trees. And my mom would kick us out the door at first thing in the morning, and she didn't want to see us until dinner time during the summer. It was a different time back then. We could just go and explore, and I loved that. So Ducks Unlimited Canada has really afforded me the opportunity to kind of reconnect to that, and working with landowners, especially in southwestern Ontario where I grew up. I'm seeing many of the same types of landscapes, and there's so much opportunity to restore natural heritage features like wetlands and create these beautiful natural spaces for kids to explore and for families to be proud of and pass on to the next generation.
Awesome. Are your folks still fortunate enough to still be farming in Middlesex County, Lynette?
No, I'll be dating myself. That was a long time ago, and my farmer dad has since passed away. But so many great memories, and that's all all a tribute to him and the heritage and the upbringing that I was provided as a farmer's daughter.
That is amazing. And does the farm still live on, if you don't mind me asking, in one form or another? Is there still a family there farming?
Yes, and in fact, most of the acreage has been sold and continues to be farmed. But interesting little segue, the house that I grew up in, and this speaks to, I think, one of the looming challenges, but something that we have to wrap our heads around. That property is being subdivided for multiple houses, which is heartbreaking,
I bet.
And not the thing that you want to see in these rural municipalities, but there's a combination of important factors driving that. The need for affordable housing, although I don't know that these particular houses will be necessarily affordable, but there's definitely a need for affordable housing. And, municipalities are looking for revenue sources, and sometimes the idea is that, well, if we create more housing, more tax revenue, we'll have more revenue source. But there have been studies to prove out that as you create more infrastructure, your long-term costs increase, and you're not really gaining anything from a revenue perspective. So there's lots of things to take into consideration.
Very well said. And yes, as another quick side note, because I could listen to what you're just talking about there forever. Last week I had to drive up to Millbank, and you may know where Millbank is, north of Stratford. And anyhow, and just driving through all these little towns where they're building all these homes. And it's like, I don't know. I don't know what to say. You said it way better than I could very articulately, but it's just kind of, it's sort of sad.
Yeah, we need the homes, but we need growth to happen in a thoughtful way. And that all comes down to municipal planning and, the province supporting that type of holistic municipal planning that maps out what should go where. There needs to be room for everybody. We need homes, we need agricultural lands for food, and we need our natural spaces to keep our landscape resilient.
Very well said. Lynette Mader with us here on Ask the Experts on News Talk 1290. CJBK, Manager of Provincial Operations in Ontario for Ducks Unlimited Canada. And again, the website, ducks.ca. Here on Ask the Experts, we will pause for some important messages and be back with more right after these. And welcome back to Ask the Experts here on News Talk 1290. CJBK with our special guest today on the program, Lynette Mader. She is the Manager of Provincial Operations in Ontario for Ducks Unlimited Canada. And Lynette, through the first segment there, you were talking about how Ducks Unlimited Canada, they protect wetlands. But what other areas are you guys tending to on a regular basis, maybe that the general population doesn't know, aside from protecting just the wetlands?
Well, there's maybe perhaps two answers to that question. So, our focus is absolutely on wetland habitats, but when we approach a property owner, a landowner, whether it's a farmer or a non-farm rural landowner, or whether our conservation partner approaches them on our behalf, they're looking at not just opportunities to restore wetlands, but is there opportunities for afforestation, to plant some trees or to plant some grasslands? Or is there more that we can do to make that property as healthy as it can be from an ecological perspective? And so we work with local partners. Again, our focus is the wetlands. We bring that restoration expertise to the table. But the local stewardship organization or local conservation authority will have expertise around forests and grassland planting that they bring to the table. And that way there's a one-stop window for that landowner to shop in, and they don't have to approach 4 different organizations to talk about various features on their property. So when we do a wetland restoration project, we'll bring our wetland restoration expertise to the table, some funding for that wetland restoration. Other partners might bring funding for other aspects of a restoration effort there. and the landowner gets a very holistic approach to a stewardship effort on their property.
Excellent. And would you go out seeking properties, Lynette, or do property owners typically come to Ducks Unlimited Canada?
A bit of both, but I must say that demand in southwestern Ontario for wetland restoration projects is so strong that we have a waiting list that we're working through. And we're actually building a wetland restoration project opportunity inventory for landowners that we can't get to this year. We'll say, hey, can you hold on another year? And when we have funding, we'll come back next year and we'll knock on your door again and see if you're still interested.
And it just seems, too, that any project that you're undertaking would be very, very big and very, very time-consuming, very, very expensive. How do you answer that?
Well, the small wetlands aren't as expensive as you might think, but really the solution is partnerships, and that's how we roll. We don't work in isolation, especially in southern and southwestern Ontario, where there are so many conservation organizations and stewardship-minded landowners. So we might approach, or a local conservation authority might call us, say, hey, we have, or one of our staff say, hey, we have a few wetland projects. What do you think? Do you have funding this year? We kind of line up what we have with what they have to bring to the table from a financial perspective. There might be a local stewardship organization that steps up and provides a bit of funding too. We pull it all together. We make sure we're, as always, matching appropriate sources of funding to other appropriate sources. We pull it together, and then we can bring, something to the landowner that will cover all aspects of what they're looking to do from an ecological restoration perspective on their property.
And do you mind, Lynette, commenting on where your funding comes from?
Oh, not at all.
Okay.
So it's a variety of sources. We do event fundraising. We have some spectacular volunteer committees, especially in southwestern Ontario. I'll give a little shout out to our Strathroy committee. That's just because I was born and raised just near Strathroy.
Right.
No favoritism.
Not at all.
So we have volunteer fundraising as well as some major gift and philanthropic donations. Corporate donations, I'm really proud to say that the insurance industry recognizes the value of natural infrastructure, so we call wetlands natural infrastructure, and is willing to invest in wetland restoration. It helps them because wetlands help to reduce and mitigate flooding. But one of the most important sources is provincial funding. We received an unprecedented grant from the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks this year. And we also work with the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry, as well as the federal government. And interestingly, we also have funding from U.S. Fish and Wildlife. And the reason that U.S. Fish and Wildlife would fund wetland restoration in Canada is because birds fly south. So waterfowl and other wetland-dependent birds that use wetlands will migrate to the south, and they understand that if they invest up here, they will help bird populations in the United States. So that's pretty spectacular.
Amazing. And people can obviously also help out if they care to financially. Go to the website, ducks.ca. Just click under How to Help. And that is also where you can find out how to become a member. And I love it there, too, when you check that out, how to help become a member. I love the T-shirts as well that are offered up with the memberships at the moment for a certain price. So check it out, ducks.ca. And now I'm putting it all together, Lynette, when you say, okay, exactly, you're in and around the Strathroy area where you grew up. Your parents were turkey farmers. You were at several turkey fests in Strathroy. I know that now.
Oh, yes, the Strathroy Turkey Festival. Of course, hosted, I think, originally by Cuddy Farms.
There you go. Right, yes. I attended a number of them as well myself over the years. So, excellent. Lynette Mader here on Ask the Experts on News Talk 1290, CJBK, Manager of Provincial Operations in Ontario for Ducks Unlimited Canada. Again, visit the website, ducks.ca. We'll be back with more here on Ask the Experts on News Talk 1290 CJBK right after these. And welcome back to Ask the Experts on News Talk 1290 CJBK with our guest today, Lynette Mader from Ducks Unlimited Canada. Lynette, is there any way to tell that maybe you have a healthy landscape? You talk about lands that do need to maybe be treated in some way, and Ducks Unlimited can help out. But how do landowners look out at their land and say, you know what, I'm in pretty good shape? Or could every property maybe use some adjustments here and there?
Well, we're all fascinated. I think all humans are fascinated by maps, and one of the easiest ways to tell if a landscape is healthy or not is to look at a map and look for the amount of blue and green. I think, our vision is all about connecting the blue and green gaps on the map in a way that best supports climate-resilient communities while still accommodating the need for affordable housing and food supply and even aggregate resources. We believe that there's room for everybody through thoughtful planning. So the more blue and green you have on a map, probably the healthier your landscape is. And for landowners that are interested in private land stewardship, we encourage them to have a look at their property, look at where there are existing natural heritage features. Are there some idle pastures, some little bit of, maybe a woods, a forest on their property? Are there low-lying areas that are typically quite wet all the time? That type of area is often perfect for wetland restoration. Is there an opportunity to connect some of these features? Maybe there's a forest and then there's a low-lying area. We could do a wetland restoration in that low-lying area adjacent to the forest and sort of connect those two features and create a larger blue-green footprint, a larger natural area, which is ideal.
As you, I'm sure, are aware, and you talk to people all the time, that particularly over the last 18 months or so during the pandemic, they have decided that, I'm going to get outside, do some hiking, do some walking, and, do some adventure sort of exploring places I've never been before. And even myself included, I go walking quite regularly in the forest behind my house. But maybe I do it and others kind of do it blindly. Lynette, any tips for people that, they like to be outside and they like to go through some trails and woods and all that sort of stuff? What to look for when they look at the landscape? Is there something that you can, open our eyes about as far as, looking at the landscape in front of us?
Well, I think the first point that sort of comes to mind there is do try to stay off private land,
right?
Because as we do, these projects on private lands, those are private property. But it really points to the need to support municipalities in creating these natural spaces and trail systems for people, and support conservation authorities in the work that they do to do that, to purchase properties and create green spaces, public spaces where people can get out and recreate and walk their dogs and hike and see nature and do some bird watching. It's never been more important, and I don't think Ontarians there's ever been a higher demand than there is right now as a result of the pandemic and people being cooped up in their houses. So, I'd recommend for people looking for trails, check the municipal website and check with your local conservation authorities, because they tend to be the two largest owners of trail systems locally.
Excellent. Lynette Mader here on Ask the Experts on News Talk 1290. CJBK, Manager of Provincial Operations in Ontario for Ducks Unlimited Canada, ducks.ca, the website address. Just in the final minute of the program, Lynette, it goes by very quick. As you look to the future, is there hope when it comes to our environment? We hear all kinds of things, and, we're ruining the environment and the lands that we live on and everything else. Give us some hope to wrap things up today.
Well, I can share that I think that private land stewardship is stronger than ever. Landowners want to see some natural spaces on their properties, and they're willing to work with local conservation organizations to do that. And the demand for wetland restoration projects has never been higher. Private landowners, farmers want these projects. It's voluntary, and the demand is there because farmers want these projects on their property. So we're really happy to see that. That's a good thing.
Awesome. Lynette Mader here on News Talk 1290 CJBK Ask the Experts. Lynette is the Manager of Provincial Operations in Ontario for Ducks Unlimited Canada. Ducks.ca, the website address. Lynette, it has been a pleasure having you here on the program. Great information, and I know our listeners appreciated it and enjoyed it as well. Thank you so much for taking the time, and you have yourself a great day.
Thanks, Ryan.
Excellent. Thank you.
Take care.
You as well. Lynette Mader here on News Talk 1290 CJBK. Again, the website ducks.ca. Become a member, and it's easy to do by visiting their website ducks.ca. Here on Ask the Experts, we will be back with more right after these.